真的不要来当空姐了。刚刚发完年终奖，又有一大波人辞职了。
Honestly, sisters, think twice before choosing to become a flight attendant. Our company had just handed out quarterly bonuses, and already, a large number of people have resigned. Yet online, there are still so many girls asking me, how can I become a flight attendant? So today, as someone who has flown for over 10 years and is about to leave the industry, let me share some heartfelt truths with you. Listen to this before you decide whether you still want to pursue this career. After all, a girl's youth only lasts a few years. Smart women should know how to maximize their value. I've said this before, today's flight attendants and those from the 1970s are products of completely different eras. Flight attendants in the 70s were legends of their time. Back then, there were only a few airplanes in the entire country. Most people might never see a plane in their whole lives. You needed a letter of introduction from your work unit just to take a flight. It was that rare. At that time, being a flight attendant was considered an angelic profession, with high social status and excellent pay. It was the dream job of countless girls. Next came the post-80s generation. Many of them were influenced by TV dramas, movies, and societal perceptions. They were attracted by the glamorous aura of the 70s flight attendants. They happened to catch the golden years of China's rapid aviation development, and also the period when urban development was very uneven. For example, flight attendants working in Tier 1 cities compared to those flying in Tier 2 cities, the ones in Tier 2 cities definitely lived more comfortably. Back then, the salaries across the flight attendant industry were pretty much the same, but the cost of living and housing prices were vastly different. For instance, many of my post-80s colleagues in Chengdu had already bought houses and cars. But in cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou or Shenzhen, with the same salary, it was nearly impossible to afford those things on your own. However, in recent years, urban development has accelerated, and regional gaps have been shrinking. Housing prices in Chengdu have now risen to 30,000 yuan per square meter, yet flight attendant salaries haven't increased at all. What's more, there are now too many airlines, and the market is oversaturated. Just in Chengdu alone, tons of airlines have moved in: Shenzhen Airlines, Sichuan Airlines, China Eastern, Tibet Airlines, Chengdu Airlines. Whether there's a market or not, everyone's rushing in to claim territory. Nowadays, airplanes are no longer rare, they've become a common mode of transport. Naturally, the flight attendant has shifted from a halo profession to just an ordinary service job, one that's physically demanding at that. While the job may be stable, the salary ceiling is low, with virtually no room for growth. The biggest dilemma in this industry now is, it's not bad if you stay, but it's hard to move up. It's like being a frog slowly boiled in warm water. You sit in it long enough, and your passion and goals slowly vanish. And here's another harsh reality: passenger expectations are higher than ever, and airline companies are becoming increasingly competitive. One small slip-up in service, and you might get a complaint. Many new flight attendants live in constant fear while flying. One wrong move could mean a deduction in points or a passenger report. The psychological pressure is intense. Not to mention flight hours. If you're unlucky and get assigned to a branch office, your monthly flying hours might be ridiculously low. Even 20 or 30 hours per month is considered decent. Fewer hours mean lower income, 4,000 to 6,000 yuan at most. If you're not from the local area, you'll have to rent. In Chengdu, rent is at least 2,000 yuan per month. Then there's the cost of commuting, late-night rides, and miscellaneous expenses that suffocate you. With this income level, there's nothing dignified or savable about it. What's even more brutal is that the cabin crew circle is very small. If you're living alone in a different city, your social circle is extremely limited. It's hard to even make friends, let alone find a partner. I have tons of single sisters over 30, everyone's anxious, but no one has a solution. Do you think being a flight attendant means traveling, flying abroad, and shopping everywhere? Reality hits hard. You hardly get any international flights, and even when you do, there's barely any time to get off the plane and explore. Broadening your horizons turns into staring at the hotel ceiling. And shopping? You don't have the money. What's even scarier is that after flying for 5 or 6 years, you realize you have no network, no savings, no new skills, and you're aging. Then what? So I sincerely suggest to young girls, while you're still young, either go to a platform that can help you develop your skills and increase your value, or find a way to start making money and building resources as soon as possible. If you're really fixated on being a flight attendant, why not go out and work somewhere else first? If you still can't find the right fit, you can always come back to this. Just don't gamble away your youth on a profession whose shine has long since faded.
In 2023, I officially resigned from my job as a flight attendant, a position that outsiders often saw as glamorous, and completely bid farewell to the civil aviation industry that so many people dreamed of entering. Many people said enviously, "Flight attendants have so much freedom. You can travel the world, and your income can easily reach tens of thousands of yuan." It all sounds so desirable. But in reality, it wasn't nearly as beautiful. When I was flying, I was essentially working 15 out of 24 hours a day. Even when there were no flight assignments, we had to stay on standby at our base around the clock, with our phones on 24 hours a day. We didn't even dare put them on silent mode, let alone leave the base without permission. On holidays, we still had to cooperate with dorm inspections. At the slightest disturbance, we might be called in to fill in for a shift or face sudden flight cancellations. The most frustrating part was early morning flights. Every day, I had to get up early not only to wash up, do my makeup, and eat breakfast, but also to prepare in advance for the pre-flight briefing. Before every flight, we had to go through a full set of makeup checks, grooming spot checks, and random professional knowledge assessments. Only after passing all of them could we board the plane and start the actual work. If the flight was at 7 a.m., I had to get up at 3 a.m. to start getting ready. There was no room for delay, not even by 1 minute. A single minute of lateness could result in suspension from flying, deductions in salary, or poor evaluation scores. Especially in places like Guangzhou and Shenzhen, where the weather changes frequently, flight delays are the norm. For us, the idea of sleep became almost a luxury. We were constantly running on sleep deprivation. But even so, we had to wear a smile and face every passenger. What we said most often was hello and sorry. Even if we had just been scolded by a passenger or were feeling down, we had to adjust our mood and keep serving. What many people don't realize is that we had to clean the airplane toilets and floors ourselves, and even when passengers vomited, we had to grit our teeth and clean it up. Don't even mention the holidays. While others reunited with family, we couldn't even go home. Even without any flight assignments, we weren't allowed to leave the base. Living alone in a different city, without family, without a personal life rhythm, even when we got sick, we didn't dare take sick leave easily. More often than not, we kept flying while sick. It became a habit. This industry has a very obvious characteristic. It seems to start at a high level, but the ceiling is extremely low. Salary levels remain almost unchanged for years. Promotion opportunities are very rare, and no matter how hard you work, that doesn't guarantee results. What people see is just the glamorous appearance of us in uniform, but they don't see the exhaustion and the ordinariness behind it. That love I once had for flying was gradually worn away by one sleepless night after another. In the end, I decided to let go of this seemingly prestigious profession. On the day I left the company, I felt as if I had freed myself from a prison. I finally had the chance to take control of my life again. I know the road ahead may not be easy, but I'm ready to face new challenges and begin a new chapter.
我这边有好几个男会员，他们的前妻呢都是空姐。
At our matchmaking agency, we've already registered quite a few male members. And there's one thing they have in common that's both interesting and a bit tragic. Many of their ex-wives used to be flight attendants. From my personal observations and professional experience, I can tell you that in Beijing, flight attendants actually belong to a high-risk group in the marriage market. Hard to marry, easy to divorce. To be honest, when many men are looking for a partner, the moment they hear that the woman is a flight attendant, their reaction is often, "Oh no, forget it. I'd rather find someone with a regular job and a stable life." Subconsciously, they feel that although flight attendants are glamorous, their lifestyle might not be suitable for a long-term relationship. And this way of thinking is becoming more and more common in reality. I know, some people might not like hearing this kind of truth, and might even accuse me of hyping things up or being biased. But if you think about it carefully, you'll find that there really are quite a few flight attendants who are very attractive and elegant in appearance, yet often live in a state of anxiety and emotional turmoil. Why is that? The main reason lies in the fact that this profession does expose women to a large number of high society individuals, especially wealthy men. But it's as if there's a pane of glass between them and these men. They can see into their world. but it's very difficult to actually enter it. They can't truly become part of those men's social circles, nor can they deeply understand the logic or path behind how these men create wealth. If we compare flight attendants with female entrepreneurs or female executives, we'll find that the former have more advantages in terms of looks and elegance, but the latter are clearly stronger when it comes to business acumen and career capability. And as they age, the competitiveness of flight attendants in the dating and marriage market declines significantly. Their so-called advantages begin to turn into disadvantages. Especially in the remarriage market, they often end up in an awkward situation, not quite good enough for the rich, but unwilling to settle for the average. That's also why we often see that many ex-husbands of flight attendants are able to remarry quite quickly, while the flight attendants themselves keep hitting walls. The core issue lies in this. Once a woman is over 30, men become more focused on whether she has long-term potential and whether she possesses a certain level of financial independence. And unfortunately, these are precisely the weaknesses that the flight attendant profession struggles to make up for during its transitional phase.
我之前就是做空姐的嘛，然后飞了大概也有4年的样子了。
I used to be a flight attendant and had been flying for about 4 years. Later, around last year, due to the economic downturn, the entire aviation industry became extremely unstable, so I decided to resign and completely leave this field. Many people on the outside look at us flight attendants and think this job is glamorous and enviable, but in reality it's really not like that. For example, if flight assignments are low, our monthly income might only be around 3,000 yuan at most, barely enough to get by. Even when flight schedules are intense and the workload is high, the salary tops out at just over 10,000 yuan, which is far from the so-called high-paying reputation. Among colleagues, we often joke that flight attendants are really just a bunch of jet-lag people living in an upside-down schedule. For instance, if you're assigned to an early morning flight, you basically have to get up at 3 a.m. to put on makeup and get ready for pre-flight work. And if it's a full-day flight, by the time it ends, it's often already 1 or 2 a.m. completely exhausted. You still have to drag a heavy suitcase and quietly go home alone. There's no such thing as a regular lifestyle. In addition to exhaustion, there are also some encounters that are hard to talk about. For example, sometimes on the plane we run into passengers who are extremely rude or even act in a harassing manner toward us flight attendants. Once, there was this creepy male passenger who added me on WeChat after the flight and actually messaged me privately with flirtatious and inappropriate remarks. This kind of absurd and disturbing situation is really hard for outsiders to understand. We face a lot more than people think on the job. Moreover, the internal management in our industry is extremely strict. Behind the smiling service that outsiders see, the pressure we endure is much greater than they imagine. Not only can passengers file complaints against you, but sometimes the company itself will assign inspectors to conduct unannounced checks. And if your facial expression isn't up to standard or your attitude falls short, it can be recorded, reported, and might even affect your flight assignments.
真的不要来当空姐了。作为一名飞行4年的空乘，身边离职的实在太多了。
Don't easily treat flight attendant as a dream job. As a former cabin crew member with 4 years of flying experience, I've already seen too many of my fellow sisters resign one after another. Just a few days ago, I saw another big wave of people leave their posts. Everyone knows that the threshold for becoming a flight attendant is extremely high. Out of 2,000 applicants, not even 60 might get selected. But even so, in today's market environment, this profession is far from being as in demand as it once was. Many people imagine flight attendants as glamorous, serving meals and drinks in the air, not spending a dime, and flying all over the world for free. It all sounds elegant and romantic. But that's really just the surface. Truth is, being a flight attendant takes a serious toll on your health. You're working every day at an altitude of 3,000 meters, constantly exposed to ultraviolet rays, which accelerates skin aging dramatically. On top of that, the cabin is filled with extreme noise, which leads to long-term hearing damage. Hearing loss is practically an occupational disease for flight attendants. In addition, chronic back pain, sore wrists, stiff necks, these are the norm. And even more severe issues like insomnia, hair loss, and irregular menstruation are common. To be blunt, if you've worked as a flight attendant for a few years and don't have at least some of these problems, you're truly a rare exception with an incredibly strong body. Sure, some airlines offer decent benefits, but you're essentially trading your health for them. In essence, it's making money with your life. Don't be fooled just because a mid-tier city might have 5 different airlines. Internal management is extremely strict. Even one passenger complaint could mean a fine at best or a grounding at worst. So when you see a flight attendant who looks like she's doing well financially, maybe she really is, but you have no idea what brutal price she's paying behind the scenes. So to the sisters still asking me, how can I become a flight attendant? You really need to think hard. Are you willing to trade your physical well-being, your daily routine, and even your youth for a job that only looks glamorous on the surface?
Being a flight attendant is far from as glamorous as outsiders imagine. In addition to the physically demanding nature of the job, the chaotic work schedule, and the toll it takes on one's health, they also face a seemingly advantageous, yet awkward situation in the dating and marriage market. You see, most flight attendants are young and attractive with well-maintained figures. Logically, they should be very popular in the matchmaking scene. But in reality, the opposite is true. Many men hesitate or even back away upon hearing that a girl is a flight attendant. Why is that? A key reason is this. Many men assume that flight attendants have very high standards when choosing a partner and will only consider those with superior financial means. So, even if an average guy has a favorable impression, he will often give up the idea of pursuing her on his own. What's more, it's true that quite a few flight attendants do look down on men with average conditions. This creates a situation of mutual avoidance. But in reality, most girls who become flight attendants don't come from wealthy backgrounds. After all, if a family is well off, parents generally wouldn't want their daughter to take on a job that relies on youth, comes with high pressure, and lacks long-term career prospects. A flight attendant's monthly income is usually around 10,000 yuan. While it may seem decent, in major Chinese cities, this income doesn't allow for much savings and is unlikely to support any upward social mobility in the long run. As a result, they often set higher financial expectations for men, hoping to improve their future life through marriage. But here lies the problem. Those men who truly have superior financial status, such as earning hundreds of thousands or even over 1 million yuan annually, owning houses and cars, often don't choose flight attendants as marriage partners. The reasons are quite realistic. Flight attendants generally don't have high educational qualifications. Most only have vocational diplomas or regular bachelor's degrees, and very few come from top-tier universities like the 211 or 985 schools. At the same time, their working hours are extremely irregular, constantly flying across regions, day and night reversed. It's nearly impossible to maintain a normal household routine, and that's a big challenge to marital stability. Ironically, these are the very issues that high-quality men tend to avoid when choosing a spouse. So who do these flight attendants end up marrying in the end? According to feedback from many matchmaking agencies, a significant number of flight attendants ultimately choose to marry divorced men, some of whom even already have children. And flight attendants themselves tend to be more accepting of age differences compared to women in other professions. They're actually more accommodating in this regard. All in all, nowadays, it's not easy for flight attendants to find a partner. And the profession itself has long lost the glamorous halo it had 20 years ago. No wonder more and more flight attendants are choosing to switch careers and look for new paths in life. If you're a flight attendant, or you happen to have a friend who is, feel free to share your real experiences and opinions in the comment section. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. See you in the next video.